Okay, our conversation now is going to be about justice and the pursuit of justice. We are joined by Julius Nyagah, who is a program attorney at the International Justice Mission, to discuss this and also to thread, because International Justice Mission, and he'll tell us what they do, also works closely with religious organizations. Where has the voice of the religious organizations been in the pursuit of justice? You know, religious organizations are right there in our communities. They are embedded in us. So, is it that, you know, when you're pursuing justice, you're alone, but when you're pursuing heaven? By the way, yesterday was Rapture Day.
Oh yeah, ilikuwa inafaa kuhappen jana.
Si ati ilikuwa inafaa, kaa ulibaki wewe juu. Kaa uko hapa. Wewe uko hapa, sawa, Rapture ili happen.
Sasa uko hapa. Sasa umekubali. Kama hujakubali yote.
Wakuenda walienda, wakubaki walienda.
Wakudumu. Oh my gosh.
Good morning. Good to have you with us today.
Even though there was a rapture yesterday, we are together.
Karibu sana. As we begin this conversation, Jano is going to give you the day's quote, words that were said by somebody, and let's see whether they make sense today.
I'm not over it.
I am also not.
I am not.
Rapture happened and tumebaki.
Sorry.
Hi.
And it's interesting, my algorithm yesterday had a lot of faith-based videos. God was trying to say something. He's like, I'm giving you a chance. Come back. Dr. Obi, her nickname is Madam Due Process. She was the former minister of finance, I believe, in the Nigerian government. She's a Nigerian economic policy expert and former World Bank vice president for Africa. One of the things she said is accountability is the currency of governance. What do you make of that?
I agree totally with that. Accountability is the currency of governance. I agree. Whenever there is governance, there has to be accountability. And it is people, the trust deficit we have with our institution have to do with accountability. We've entrusted them with governance. When there is an issue with the deficit for that, then there is no accountability. Not just as a perception, but as a reality. True. That's my take.
No, it's a good take.
Yeah.
I struggle with how we grapple with accountability in this country. It's almost seen as a sin to admit on admission of matters that you should have addressed. And I think that's what will continue to hold us back. Because as long as you're not holding yourself accountable, then nothing really moves. Because you move in the same mistakes. But thank you for being with us. Maybe we can start by asking what you do, what the mission does, the mandate of the mission.
So IJM is a global human rights organization in different parts of the world. And in Kenya, we partner with the local criminal justice system, that is the government, and the agencies entrusted with delivering justice to strengthen them, to ensure that they rescue and restore survivors of violence, they hold perpetrators accountable, and they have a safe and future that lasts for the people of Kenya. So mainly some of our allies in the criminal justice system include the National Police Service, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, that is IPOA, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, among others, who are charged with ensuring that there is justice for the citizens of this country. So mainly that is our work. We also work with communities and churches to ensure that we are sustaining a campaign for accountability and justice for the vulnerable and minorities. So the church and the communities are also a very big ally of IJM in the work that we do. We believe instead of just making noise, we want to walk alongside the duty bearers, find out where the challenges are. We also want to engage the communities and the church to ensure they are discharging their mandate, because everyone has a responsibility towards justice. I mean, a citizen has a responsibility to report. We realize in our report, in a survey that we did between 2022 and 2024, we have a big trust deficit with institutions, like you said, and therefore Kenyans are not reporting. 62% of Kenyans who experience forms of abuse or human rights abuse do not report. That is because of a trust deficit. So we work with all institutions to ensure that there is accountability, and those who are charged with the mandate of ensuring there is justice really pursue justice for the minorities.
And what do they tell you, those duty bearers, when you come with such reports to them and tell them, you know, a majority of people who are facing injustices are actually not reporting to you because they don't trust you. When you tell them that, what do they tell you?
No. Of course, some of them are very welcome to receive our reports. I think at the launch of the report, we had all the duty bearers were there. IPOA, the National Police Service, Internal Affairs Unit, and the who is who in the criminal justice system, especially as regards police accountability. But one of the things they constantly keep saying is the issues of capacity. Recently, I attended a training where the chair of IPOA Mr. Isaac Hassan, stated that they have 77 investigators in the entire country who are supposed to hold accountable over 200,000 police officers. So you can imagine there is a gap in terms of capacity. They have a serious gap. And that's why you see investigations take time. Yeah, so some of them acknowledge the problem, but then they also have their own gaps and challenges that they are pushing for.
And from a community level,
Yes.
when you engage at community with the various stakeholders in community, including the religious organizations,
Yes.
what is it that the community wants so that then they can build trust?
The community wants to see a government or institutions that are accountable. They want to see speed. They don't want investigations taking 3 years. They also want to see these institutions on the ground. I mean, one of the recommendations that IJM made was for community dialogues between this institution, if it's the police and the communities. They feel they're too far off. Yeah? So they want to see these institutions in the community. They want to see speed. They want to see investigations not taking 3 years. I mean, you just before we came on here, there was a case about a child who
Alexander
died in
Muteti.
police custody.
Yep.
That's one of the victims who came to IJM. And I think since the matter happened, the matter has been stuck, took long at investigation, now still stuck at DPP for over 1 year. So people want to see progress. They want to see progress, that investigations will happen, not just for the cases that are in the public limelight, but when an incident happens, they want speed. But of course, that has to do with capacity also for these agencies. And then, of course, that has to do with budgeting. Yeah.
Is there an element of goodwill there as well?
I mean, that is a perceptive question,
Here-
but I
here-
believe some of them
Here,
are.
here let me build the case for
Yes.
it. So let's take, for example, this case of Zipporah Muteti and her son.
Yeah.
You were arrested, you were roughed up by police officers, the child dies in the hands of the police,
Yeah.
right? Whom do you report to? I mean, it has happened in the police station.
Yeah.
Whom are you reporting to?
Yeah.
You would expect that the senior is the one that you're reporting to, that this has happened in your station.
Yeah.
And then there'd be goodwill from the seniors to take up this matter and say, all right, this has happened, my officer has done this has happened in my case, I want to bring in internal affairs, I want to bring in IPOA so they can do it, and you, officer, you shall give a statement.
Yeah.
Everybody else who was around on duty on that day, you shall also give your statement.
Yeah.
We shall cooperate fully. Do we get those kind of, that's the goodwill I mean?
I have had experience from both sides of the divide because as a lawyer, I'm also involved in documentation of human rights abuses and representing victims in court. So you find officers who take charge and would report the matter, even to notify IPOA and engage investigations, or even arrest colleagues. But the other extreme is also true. You also have blue code of silence incidences where the police cover up for their own. But we also have very good officers who take action even against their own colleagues. So there is further on both sides of the divide.
It's called a blue code of silence,
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
Just hearing that word for the first time. What are the cases that you've dealt with over time that have specifically stuck out to you, either in how they were handled, mishandled, or the progression, just the ones that come to mind immediately?
Yeah, there are many cases we've handled as IJM, and I know people know us for the case of our colleague Willie Kimani.
Yes.
I think that is the one case that we got a lot of cooperation from all the criminal justice actors, where you found the DCI were investigating their own colleagues and there were no holds barred. There was no attempt to cover up or anything. In fact, many of them saying that this is not a representation of who we are as a National Police Service. So that was also a very good moments with that case. But we have had many other cases, both ongoing, which I can't comment in court, but also others which have been concluded recently, where we've seen very good cooperation from members of the National Police Service. For example, we recently had a case concluded at the Eldoret High Court, where 2 police officers were convicted of murder. They arrested a young man in Bororo, and they tortured him in police custody. And when he died in police custody, they dumped his body in a river to try to cover up. So that matter was investigated by, of all people, the DCI, who are also the members of the National Police Service. And you see, they went through to ensure justice was done. They recommended the officers be charged with murder. So you see, not all members of the National Police Service cover up, but we also have other incidences to other extent. I think for that case, the reason why it stands out is because finally the relief that comes when families get justice, because not all families get to have their day in court. Not all families get to see the conclusion of the ends of justice, or even when the case comes to an end, they feel justice has been done. There are many who will never get their day in court, who never know what happened to their kin in issues of, for example, enforced disappearance, and many others. So when we finally get to have a victim getting their day in court and getting to have the court pronounce itself on matters of justice, it is usually a big deal for us, because we are there to ensure victims and survivors of violence get justice. Yeah.
You mentioned the church as you were talking a little bit about the mandate of IJM.
Yes.
Is it that there's elements of leading from a faith-based perspective, or are you just collaborating with churches?
We IJM itself, in its tenets, it's a Christian organization, and it's largely funded by Christians across the world. And it's founded on issues of biblical justice. We believe that God cares about the vulnerable and would want to see justice rendered. There's an entire theme in the Bible that runs through the Old Testament and the New Testament about people who are vulnerable not getting justice, and governments ensuring that these people get justice. I mean, God cares about such people. So IJM is founded on those tenets. And therefore, we collaborate with churches and communities and religious organizations to ensure that they also put in their work to ensure justice is done for the community.
Is that how, for you personally, faith shapes your understanding of justice?
Yes, exactly. So I believe by being a lawyer, I am called by God to be a lawyer. That is my calling. And I'll be accountable for how I use my legal profession to ensure there is justice. I'm a minister at the altar of justice. That is how I would refer myself.
Has there ever been a time that it's been compromised or challenged, where your faith and your legal expertise are at loggerheads?
Yeah, many times it has been challenged, but I think your convictions is what guides you. So I've always stood for the side of justice and for the side of what really God would want done to survivors and victims of violence, and even in any matter that involves justice. Yes.
Do religious leaders speak out enough on justice in this country, in your humble opinion?
Yes.
Okay, well, anecdotally, I'll say there seems to be a gap. I think it comes in pockets. It's ad hoc.
Yeah.
You'll see, and then it's not united, it's not unified. During the protests, I think it was very ad hoc. Some were very much about even sheltering some of the protesters and really standing on that. Others don't. So number one.
Others needed a nudge.
It's
only when it became, cool. Yes, yes, and became hot and cool.
And when everybody was like, oh, you've not said anything. Would you like us to help you say something? So number one,
or
your
when the
thoughts,
congregants...
when the congregants push back.
Yes, and they were there on Sunday like, why are you silent?
Exactly. Why is the church silent?
Yeah. There's a popular song that says, Sita simama maovu yakitendeka. I think for me, I believe they could do better. That is my personal opinion. They could do better because I believe they have a mandate, and being the instruments of what we call God, messengers of God to the nation, they have a responsibility to speak truth to power. I mean, whether you find, and I'll base it on what I said about biblical justice, prophets in the Bible always spoke to the king, even when the king did not like what the prophets were saying. I mean, Prophet Nathan going to tell David, I mean, what you did was wrong. Well, whether the king decides to attack the prophet or the king discredits the prophet, they have a duty to speak truth to power. We believe they should step up and speak truth to power. And whether they are pushed by their own congregants or on their own motion, I believe they should do better in terms of calling the nation or calling the powers that be to do what is right.
I look at it from a basic community level in the pursuit of justice. When one feels that there's been an injustice at their personal level, they'll go to either, a local elder, and nowadays we have a system, it's still ad hoc, but mzee wa nyumba kumi, they'll go to that level, go to chief, go to police station, or go to the religious leader, right? Seeking justice. I've been wronged by so-and-so, and the religious leader comes in. Now, do the religious leaders, the faith leaders, see themselves as a cog in the pursuit of justice, or do they see themselves as advocates for justice?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a very good question. A very good question. You're making me go back, and maybe this will help answer the question. So we have something called Freedom Sunday in IJM, which happens in the month of September. So September, we call it Justice Month. We engage congregations and churches and religious institutions throughout to sustain a campaign on issues of justice, which culminates in a Sunday, probably the last Sunday of September, called Freedom Sunday, where the sermon is focused on justice. Our emphasis is to show churches how they're not just a cog, but they're advocates for justice. And I agree with you. You find that most people, where they find it's safe for them to report is to their pastors, to their church members, to the chief, and of course to the police. Yeah, but you find most people, especially those in religious institutions, will find it easier to speak to their pastor or to the religious leader as opposed to speaking to the police. So we believe they are advocates, and many of them have really stepped up, because we've had like last Sunday alone, we had many IJMers, that is staff from IJM, engaging with congregations in different parts of Nairobi and the country to speak on issues of justice, where either the pastor or an IJMer was talking and the message was themed on justice. Throughout the year, we've had campaigns training the religious leaders on issues of justice and how they are pertinent. They are at the center of ensuring justice is done. So I believe there are those who may not have stepped up, and majority of the people we partner with, including the Catholic Archdiocese, the PCEA Church, and the PEFA Church, and the Greater Mathare Pastors Fellowship in Nairobi, many of them consider themselves advocates, and you'll see them even calling on for action. You'll see them calling government to action and to order on certain issues. So we believe some of them have understood their mandate, but some are yet to take up their full responsibility and realize they are not just cogs, but they are also advocates in ensuring justice is done in our community.
I actually would like them to see themselves as actors as well in justice. So it's the same way I'm saying many people will report to a church elder, to a pastor, to a father, right? On when they feel injustice. What does that priest do with that information, right? How do they handle this situation going forward? And as IJM, maybe you can tell us whether you've done this kind of study. You've studied how police handle citizens. You've studied how chiefs handle citizens. Have you studied how other people like religious leaders handle citizens? When somebody goes and complains that I suspect that my child is being molested by my brother, by my husband, by my wife, by my relative, and they're telling this to a religious leader, what does that religious leader do with that information so that they can then get into the justice chain?
I have seen those incidences that are there where you find churches, depending on the information they have, and that's why advocacy and educating is important. When they know where to report, they actually report. You find the pastor receives a complaint and realizes this kind of complaint, it needs to be reported to the police station, because a child was molested, they need to document the evidence, they need to be taken to the hospital and a P3 form filled. And then they will call IJM and say, there's this case, how can you assist this minor? Some will report to the nearest place they know of. For example, the community social justice center. There are some of those places in the community where people can report complaints against government officers. And even when they are not aware who can help deal with this, when they know an organization, even new people in the media, they report to you and ask, do you know people who can help? We receive referrals from journalists in their work when they're investigating or interviewing clients and victims. They are like, we feel this case, IJM, you can be able to assist. So there are some who do a very good job of reporting and documenting and even preservation of evidence, because they have been sensitized and they know, like, for example, in matters of such offenses, time is of the essence. If you're going to preserve evidence and you're going to get good evidence to get accountability in future, you need to act with speed.
And whether they're even prepared for that responsibility, because it needs some capacity building. We'll take a break. We'll come back and continue our conversation with Julius Nyagah, Program Attorney, International Justice Mission, the pursuit of justice from a religious lens, and come and just talk a little bit more about what gaps exist and how, as we're saying, people of faith and the church can play a role in restoring justice in the community. Send us your feedback as well. Talk to us on social media. We'll come back and sample some of your feedback.
We're back in conversation with, of course, Wakili Julius, discussing the work of the International Justice Mission, faith, religion, and justice, that intersection. And I know we've started to thread on it, and Jano, you had alluded to it a little bit, but it seems that bigger organizations or churches seem to have clear structures, clear values, clear everything, and even when it's time to speak up and speak truth to justice, very clear. Whether it's the Anglican Church, whether it's the Catholic Church, and whether it's SUPChem, clear. But then the splinter cells are where the problems come about. How do we, what's the fix for that? So that uniformly, politicians don't feel like, oh, I have been locked out from PCEA, but so and so by the road
is where I can go.
Is where I can go.
that's a tough one. But I think we have freedom of worship in Kenya.
We do.
And I think churches are free to engage how they feel they should engage. I think this is more of a call for your own consciousness and what the Bible requires of you. I mean, if you're a Bible-based church and you really believe in the Word of God, you should speak truth to power. You should call out injustice. You should speak against evil. I think that is
regulation. We regulate everything. Why can't we regulate the church? We regulate everything.
There's a report that calls for that.
Yeah.
It's a report.
It's a dicey matter, I would say, Latif and Mariam. It's a dicey matter because I agree there are some form of, especially when you see some of the churches and how they exploit members, and you know some of the things they come out with which are outrightly appalling. There may be need to regulate, but then also religious institutions tend to feel like this may be an opportunity for government to crack down on those who dissent. For example, you hear pastors, for example, one of the reasons maybe pastors may be afraid to speak truth to power is they don't know some of those members they want to call out are in their church, and maybe they give fat offerings, you know? So that is where we say, for example, until religious leaders and churches are willing to say, it doesn't matter what it costs us, we will speak the truth. If you're uncomfortable coming to our institution, then that should so be it. Because I think so long as, you know, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So long as they are thinking about members of our church and the support they give us, then they will be compromised. So there's a balance that is needed. I believe some form of regulation should be there, but also not be used by the state that opportunity to crack down on dissent.
Yeah.
And a more active role, sorry, Jen.
No, go ahead.
A more active role in community, because I just want to come back into that. When I look at what our religious organizations, so we are majority Christian, and then we have a sizable population of Muslim and Hindu, and then we have other religions. If you look at them, they have invested heavily, for example, on education. They've invested heavily on health, setting up facilities and employing doctors and saying that our community members can come to school here. Even those splinters, they're actually doing big business on health and education. Now, is there a way that they can play a bigger role on the pursuit of justice? Like establishing institutions and places where you can go and get justice, where you can go, like, safe houses set up by religious organizations, or reporting places where you can go. We know in times of disaster, you go to church. Churches mobilize feeding for hungry people during, famine and so on and so forth. How about in terms of justice? Even in terms of, like, when we have big cases, 2007 post-election violence, the religious organizations played a big role, hosting the displaced people and trying to, just give them some sense of immediate justice. But is there a role that the religious organizations can play in establishing proper structures for justice?
Yes, a resounding yes, because I believe there's so much they can do to ensure they are playing a bigger role in terms of other than just speaking out. That's just one. That doesn't cost much. Calling a press conference or in church, giving a sermon on that or speaking about it. But I believe they can do more than that. I even believe some of these members, for example, when you're talking about truth to power, for example, and accountability, most of these people are members of those institutions. They can call them, They can sponsor people into those institutions, and they can call them to order. I've read and I've heard of places where churches and religious people come together, they sponsor a candidate, and they want that candidate to prosecute their agenda. When we go there, we ask you questions. We want you to move certain bills and motions. We want you to take a stand on certain issues. So I believe they can do more than that. I believe they can take a wider role and a more intense role in accountability, not just speaking about the issues that are happening in society. I believe religious institutions and churches, and they can do better than what they are currently doing.
How do you counter misuse of religion to justify harm or to silence victims? Because again, there's that thing that exists where, how do you counter? And I'm sure there's cases, but religion sometimes is used to justify harm, to silence victims. How do you counter that? Sometimes, again, it's that thin line. If you think about it from this end, it seems obvious, but people who are deep in faith sometimes will buy, maybe I just need to be quiet if this harm has been posed to me. So as IGEM, how do you come in to try and counter that misuse of religion to justify harm and silence? Or
even now, religious leaders weaponizing the same
Right.
and saying, no, this matter, we've settled it. And it's a criminal matter.
So one of the biggest things we do as IJM is we create awareness, both in communities, in churches, and all over the place, even to government officers. We have meetings with them, we have trainings, we have community engagements and outreach. So we create awareness on the procedures and what is supposed to be done. And you know, when you go to some of these further off communities, it's true. You can hear of incidences where they say we forgive each other. You know, God calls us to forgive, but also God cares about justice. So there are matters that may be so, for example, private dispute between individuals, family matters, but when it is a criminal offense, or there are matters that require restorative justice, we call on them to do the proper thing. And some of them may not even be aware of this is what they're supposed to do or where to report. So we create awareness so that they know which offenses can be resolved amicably between individuals and which one have to be reported. For example, defilement of a child. That is not a matter you want to sort as a family dispute. It's not a family dispute because there needs to be a safe mechanism of handling the dispute to ensure the child is protected and the perpetrator is held accountable to ensure that is not repeated. Because when you cover up some things and sweep them under the carpet, you're enabling some of those vices. So we create awareness with communities, with churches also, in terms of telling them this is what the law requires. This is where you can report. Because Kenyans, some of them do not know where to report this. You will be surprised, even here in Nairobi, an incident happens and people don't know where to report. So that is one of the things we engage in, creating awareness. People know these are the institutions that deal with this. This is where you can report this matter. And even IJM acts as a referral partner. We may not handle a matter, but we know which institution handles. I represent IJM in a forum called Referral Partners Forum and Complaints Handling. It involves civil society and government office, so that if you receive a complaint from touching on maybe Ministry of Lands, for example, we may not handle that, but we forward it to the right institution to deal with it. Okay. So creating awareness is part of our responsibility.
It's a big part. I was also thinking through all the, maybe, should I call them loopholes or the gaps in our justice system from your point of view? Where do things fall through the cracks and do you see that, you know what, we could have done better from a human resource perspective, goodwill perspective, and structural as well? So there are gaps at every stage of the criminal justice system. And I think to answer you, Latif, earlier you asked me, you said churches should be actors. They are actually actors. Same way communities are actors in the criminal justice. So there are gaps at every level of the criminal justice system, which we believe have different ways of handling it. In our baseline survey, which I talked about, which was launched this year, which was conducted between 2022 and 2024, we have talked about some of the gaps and how to address them. One of the biggest gaps we've noticed is budgeting, budget allocation for institutions in accountability. They are always saying we do not have enough staff, we do not have enough staff capacity to handle investigations. We realize a matter of, for example, police misconduct takes about 3 years to investigate, to finalize investigations. Because of the issue I told you, IPOA have 77 investigators. IAU is another issue. They have, in terms of their staff capacity and what is approved is another issue. All those are budgetary issues. So that causes the goodwill. Internal affairs officers there are?
Yes, I can check and let you know. I have the data here. I can check and let you know before I get off of this interview. So you find, until we address those issues of capacity, delay will still be there. And delay to the members of the public is like, we reported this case, nothing happened. And then also, these institutions need to come out and create, dialogues with the community. Let the community understand your processes so that they know when you are quiet doesn't mean the matter was thrown away or nothing is happening. I can give you a very good example. We are all familiar with the Kianjokoma case, the two brothers who were killed in Kianjokoma, Embu County. And IJM represent the victims in that case in court. In fact, the matter is coming up today. So when we went to have dialogues in that community after the incident happened, you find members of the community say, this case, something happened, we don't know what happened. They are not aware that the matter is already in court, 6 officers were charged, witnesses have testified, and the matter is ongoing. So there's a trust deficit because of lack of information and awareness. So I think these institutions also have a mandate to ensure they're engaging the community, like issuing, this matter happened, this is what is happening. So that there's also that trust that the community is aware. You took over this matter, you investigated, it's reached this point.
Before you go on, because it's a public interest case, just maybe do give us an update on the Kianjokoma brothers, as much as you can give.
Yes. So we are, the matter is coming up today for further hearing of prosecution witnesses. So far, we've had about 6 witnesses of the prosecution. And we have many more to go. We have more than 10 witnesses to go. Unfortunately, we've had a series of adjournments because we're initially before Justice Ogembo, then he was transferred, then we're trying to have him finish the matter, then he died. So getting reallocated to another judge took a bit of time. I think the last time the matter proceeded was in 2023, I think November.
Wow.
So this year we had some 5 days in June. Unfortunately, the matter was adjourned because one of the accused persons was unwell. So we are hoping today we'll be able to proceed and make some progress because it really matters to the family of the victims, even to the community. Because when people see progress, they see justice is being done. When they see delay, they interpret it. You cannot control how people interpret delay. They might think something else is happening or other interests are at play. So that is how far the matter is happening.
Thank you. Last hearing was 2023.
Yes.
Wow.
That proceeded.
That proceeded.
Yes, all others have not been successful.
Yes, adjournment.
Yes.
Who's prosecuting this? Is it the ODPP?
Yes, the ODPP is
What is
prosecuting.
IJM's role?
We represent the victim's family. That is the parents and the family of those two boys.
Okay.
Yes.
What kind of communication are you, as IJM, playing in the community? The same thing that you've said.
Yes, yes.
You know, keep the community involved, informed of what's going on.
Yeah, so for us, we try to do whatever we say, we speak the same message. So we update communities. When we went for the dialogue, we told them, this is how far the case is. So we'll update our clients who are the victims. Remember, every advocate has a duty to inform their clients of the progress of their case. So we update the family. They are aware the matter is coming up today. Whenever their decision on when the next date is, we'll update them. But also the wider community. When we are communicating, we also inform the public that this matter is coming up on this date.
But you're saying something better could be done.
Yes.
Paint for me that picture. Who could be doing what and how?
You know, we are doing that as IGM. We believe like these government offices, they could also be issuing communication. I've seen something from IPOA where they say, these are the matters coming up this week, which IPOA has investigated. So that if people know they refer the matter to IPOA, then this is what is happening in these matters. Issuing, even when they have received a matter from the community, going to this community and telling them, this is what has happened. Yeah.
You know, there's the National Council for the Administration of Justice that brings together all these actors.
Right.
It brings in the judiciary, it brings in the DPP, the police, the prisons, brings in civil society actors, the communities and all. Is that maybe a good platform to mobilize resources? So you're not getting proper funding to mobilize resources, especially for community engagement on such matters.
Yes, it's a very good platform. And in fact, we use that forum ourselves. I believe some of our officers, including our country director, sits in some of those committees of the National Council on Administrative Justice. And some of the issues they call for is, for example, systemic issues. You remember when you walk alongside the criminal justice, you realize where the gaps are. Earlier we talked about gaps.
Right.
You realize maybe young men from low-income areas are being arrested and charged with petty offenses, which have been in the penal code for the longest time. So one of the things we call for is decriminalization of such offenses. For example, an offense like preparation to commit a felony. I mean, an officer meets a young man and looks at him and decides he is preparing to commit a felony. Maybe the young man was selling fruits and is carrying some knives and, you know, such instances.
Let me ask you. They say that.
Yeah, it's in the penal code.
Yes.
In the penal code. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, we're going back to the penal code.
Yes.
Sorry, my mind.
So some of the things we call for.
Being a vagabond.
Yes.
That one. Or loitering.
Yeah.
What is loitering?
Yeah.
What's being a vagabond?
Yeah. What is the threshold for preparation to commit a felony?
Right.
So you see
If
now,
you look some type of way.
yeah.
Or like you have a knife,
Like that.
you're chopping fruits and selling them. Oh, now you're armed, right?
Interesting. Okay. Do courts respect faith as a factor in judgment, or is it sidelined?
I think courts are guided more by justice and the Constitution as opposed to faith factors. The reason I see that is because you will also find faith, religious persons being accused persons in court. I mean, I know of a case we did where a pastor, per se, defiled a brother and a sister. So I think courts are influenced more by the interests of justice as opposed to faith.
Okay.
Yeah. And if there's a matter that concerns faith, then the right courts handle, for example, the Qadi's court will handle that matter if it's concerning those issues of faith. But I believe in terms of offenses, I think courts are guided by justice, the ends of justice. Yeah.
You had, sorry, I stopped you when you were threading on the gaps in the criminal justice system, but just to get the update on the Kendra Koma brothers, and then we kind of pivoted. But you had mentioned budget, and of course the communication problems. But are there any other glaring gaps?
Yes. So there's the issue of reporting. Kenyans, like I said earlier in our survey, 62.6% of Kenyans who experience police misconduct cases do not report. And of course, if people do not report, then we don't have a full picture of what is happening. So Kenyans also and citizens need to be encouraged to report these matters. Probably maybe the awareness comes, that's where the gap with the duty bearers are. They need to create awareness so that Kenyans know this is where I can report this kind of case. Like now, most Kenyans don't even know about the Internal Affairs Unit and the difference with IPOA. The Internal Affairs Unit handles misconduct on disciplinary issues. IPOA handles issues of serious injury or death. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Even if you report to the wrong institution, they will refer to the right institution. So that's another issue. When we do sensitization across the country, because we partner with some of these institutions to support. Remember, we said budget is one of the issues, right? Awareness is an issue. So sometimes we partner with them to strengthen them. We go with them to the community. We support a forum where they're engaging the community to know what they do. We would be surprised some officers, police officers, do not know what Internal Affairs Unit is and what they do. So this awareness helps them to know, oh, so there's a place that can be taken for disciplinary, which is still within the National Police Service. So those are some of the gaps, not exhaustive though, but some of the gaps that we've identified in terms of as we pursue accountability.
I was looking at the baseline report summary.
Yes.
The baseline report, Justice System Response to Police Accountability 2025, commissioned by the International Justice Mission. Call to action at the very end says the baseline study is more than just a report. It serves as a roadmap for positive change in our criminal justice system. It is crucial for all stakeholders to come together and translate these insights into action. By doing so, we can restore dignity, uphold justice, and rebuild public trust in our institutions. I've looked at the word action. I know we've spoken a little bit to it, but what would it take to put this baseline into practice? What would that look like? Stakeholders, baseline into practice?
It's engaging all the stakeholders involved. Having a sit down and realizing, owning, first they have to own the report. That is the first step. You own it and say, this is a true reflection of how things are. Because you see, again, we started by saying, if you deny, then you do not change anything. You just keep lying to yourself that this is not the situation on the ground. But when you own it up, you do a self-introspection and you realize there's a problem and this is how to fix it. Earlier on, you asked me a question about the strength of the Internal Affairs Unit. So from the presentation that they made at a forum I was in, their approved establishment capacity is a total staff of 1,168, but they only have 69 staff. That involves both ordinary staff and investigators. So you can see 1,168 versus 69. So even them, they need capacity building. They need more allocation so that they can be able to handle the issues they deal with.
Well, they need 1,000 more staff.
Yes, that is approved establishment in terms of staff capacity, but they only have a staff capacity of 69.
Again, just for clarity, what does Internal Affairs handle and what does IPOA handle? You said disciplinary matters.
So
what are those disciplinary matters?
According to the National Police Service Act, they handle issues of police misconduct. Okay?
What is
and
that?
Anything that is a malpractice by a police officer is a police misconduct. Including whether he shot someone, or he slapped someone, or he took a bribe. But now we have the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, which is a civilian oversight of the police. Remember, the Internal Affairs Unit reports to the IG, who is responsible for the professionalism and discipline of the National Police. Nothing stops him from intervening in any matter touching on a police officer, including where a police officer has shot somebody, even when that matter is being investigated by IPOA. But you see, those two are operating the same realm. Whereas IPOA is the oversight, civilian oversight, they focus on death and serious injury, purely. Because if you take issues of discipline, they will refer them to the IG and to the National Police Service, right? But now you find that there have been directives, even by the ODPP, that issues that touch on police, let us have IPOA deal with it. The reason why we have IPOA is sometimes people feel like you cannot investigate yourself. Okay, I have a different view. Sometimes we have very good investigations by IAU, and even them charging officers with ordinary room proceedings, and even recommending charges in court. But the issue of perception, again, remember, the blue code of silence. If it is an officer investigating his colleague, maybe they were in school together, they were in the same detail, so there's that perception.
And then, of course, sometimes it's politically motivated.
So because of that, then that's why IPOA comes in. But I think from practice, we've seen IPOA focuses on death and serious injury issues.
Involving civilians.
Yes, involving civilians, but also where police against police. I mean, you'll be surprised. Also, there are issues of police misconduct against their fellow officers. And they are investigated also by IPOA or IAU.
So then other police misconduct that's not serious injury or death, should go to the internal affairs.
Yes, you need. Yes.
But then there's a big gap between. I mean, yeah. There's so many other things that do constitute police misconduct, especially when dealing with civilians. I'm wondering if that's a gap there. Because as a civilian, ideally, it's very daunting to go report a police officer to another police officer. And it's okay. It's not a matter that's death or injury, but still daunting. Yeah,
but remember, Mariam, for action to be taken, the first place you report any incident is in a police station.
That's true.
Again, it's officers.
Even if it's a...
So I think, let's treat it, I would say this, let's come from a place of, let's trust the institution first. Unless they give us a reason why not, we cannot trust them. Yeah? So report at the police station. Now, if they do not take your report, then you can go to IPOA, you can go to IAU. Okay? But saying that they will not, that will dissuade so many Kenyans from reporting. And we already have a crisis of not reporting because of a trust deficit. Yeah. Okay. Unless you are given reason why not, they are not taking your matter seriously, then report. Because you'll be surprised because at the end of the day, police officers are family members, they are Kenyans. Some of them are very good. Some of them don't approve of what their colleagues are doing. It's just that you find those who are notorious for misconduct give the service a bad name. But because some of them handle us. Some of them have handled cases and this was investigated. I've just given you an example of a case from start to finish by police officers. And they made recommendations. They even obtained a confession statement and a conviction is obtained. So not all of them I get the balance that needs to be there. Yeah, but unless there is a reason to distrust them, let's approach it with, because if you become skeptical. Yes, because if you become skeptical, what will happen to Kenyans is, they don't take action. Even when maybe there's an officer at the report desk who would have taken your report and said, hey, this is a matter that should be handled by IPOA, or this is a matter that should be referred to Internal Affairs Unit. I did a case a while back in Kikuyu Law Courts, where an officer commanding a police station shot a civilian and bundled him in the police car and put him in cells and refused him to be taken to hospital. The officers at the report desk, who are his juniors, did not like what he was doing. They felt this Kenya needed medical attention. And you know, one of the requirements of the National Police Service standing orders is if you shoot somebody, if the force is justified, and you should take all the necessary measures to give them medical attention. The officers are the ones who intervened. They are the ones who contacted IPOA. They contacted IJM. They are the ones who prevailed on the OCS to take this person to be taken to hospital. So you see, in such an instance, you should have trusted those officers because they did the right thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Julius Nyagah, Program Attorney, International Justice Mission, talking about the pursuit of justice from a religious lens. Thank you for shedding light on that. It's coming up to 8 a.m. in the next hour. Lessons again on disaster response. We'll be speaking to the chairman of the Kenyatta National Hospital, Abbas Kulet, to talk to us, lest we forget, because he's been at the front lines of a lot of these disasters, what lessons learned, what more needs to be done. We'll hear from him in just a moment.